We begin today with the news that an attorney who represents former government contractor Edward Snowden says she was detained and questioned by Heathrow Airport Border Force in London while going through customs. Jesselyn Radack was traveling along with former NSA whistleblower Thomas Drake to meet with Julian Assange at the Ecuadorian embassy in London. Yesterday, Radack tweeted after her experience saying, "I'm fine. Heathrow's Border Force was just trying to intimidate me. Who is Edward Snowden? Do you know him? Where is Bradley Manning?" To talk about what happened exactly, I was joined earlier by Jesselyn Radack herself from London, and I first asked her to tell me about what that experience was like.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has to go through customs. I get that. And usually you get the same questions about where are you going, where are you staying, how many days will you be here, and that sort of thing. But I was directed to a specific booth at what is called Border Force, which is, I guess, a name they use for customs at Heathrow. And I was initially asked why I was there, and I said to see friends. And they said, who? And I said, well, the people in Sam Adams Associates, which is an American organization, which is usually the kind of answer that I give on the last 15 international trips I've been on. And then they wanted to know who was in that group. So I named some names. And then they did at one point, I mean, they did look at the passport enough to see that I had 2 Russian visas in there, and wanted to know why I had gone to Russia twice in the past 3 months. And I said that I had a client there, and they asked who, and I said that it was Edward Snowden. And this is where it got really weird, even weirder, I should say. They said, who is Edward Snowden? And that just felt very strange.
And I want to ask you about that.
A whistleblower and an asylee.
Mm-hmm. That was extremely peculiar.
I don't know. I mean, who on the... Yes, very peculiar. Who on the planet doesn't know who Edward Snowden is? But, I mean, my answer was just very factual. He's a whistleblower, and he's an asylee. And then after that, they asked me if I represented Bradley Manning. They brought up these names, not me. They asked if I represented Bradley Manning, and I said no. And then he did that same peculiar question, who is Bradley Manning? And I said, a whistleblower, which legally he is. And then the man asked, where is Bradley Manning? As if he didn't know. And I said, in jail. And he said, yes, he's a criminal, or something to that effect. I mean, it was to make me feel like, okay, these people are not whistleblowers, they're criminals. I don't know, it was very, finally, I just said, look, I'm a human rights attorney. And I was allowed to eventually go through, but it was just a very strange line of questioning and completely inappropriate to be asking about privileged attorney-client relationships. It is public that I am one of the attorneys representing Ed Snowden. However, normally the fact of representation is something that can only be revealed with the client's permission. So the fact that he's asking about who my clientele is and about my specific attorney-client privileged work matters is inappropriate. And although I maintained a calm demeanor during the questioning, as soon as I left, I mean, I was shaking and I cried. It was extremely intimidating. And I know there are a few trolls on Twitter saying, it shouldn't be intimidating to answer a few questions, but believe me, when you're in a prolonged situation like that, and my goal is trying to get into a country where I'm going to be delivering an award, along with others, to Bradley Manning. It happens to be the same award, the Sam Adams Associates for Integrity and Intelligence Award that Tom Drake and Ray McGovern and myself and Colleen Rowley delivered last year to Edward Snowden. You know, I didn't want to be belligerent or talk back or be smart or clever or, argue in any kind of way, again, because I'm dependent upon this person to let me into the country. But again, I feel like there's a pattern that's developing of interrogating journalists and lawyers at borders, and that is unacceptable.
And Jesselyn, as I understand it, NSA whistleblower Thomas Drake was traveling with you and was also going to the meeting at the Ecuadorian embassy, yet he wasn't exactly questioned in the way that you were. Any sense as to why you were singled out there?
I have no idea. It seems like, because of the questions I was asked and why Tom was not singled out, based on the questions I was asked, I can only surmise it is because I am a representative, a legal advisor to Edward Snowden.
And as I understand it, you were on something called, or you found out later, you were on something called the inhibited persons list. Can you talk about where that designation came from? How do you think you ended up on that list?
I don't know. I don't even know for sure that I am. Again, it's one of these things. Jen Robinson, another human rights attorney, was told that she was on the list, but she was facing difficulty leaving the country. They do have this inhibited persons list, but I don't know if that just means, kind of like it did in America, the equivalent of being on the selectee portion of the no-fly list, which I also had been for a number of years. Because I myself have been a whistleblower, but I've done my stint on, various watch lists, and in the past it was because I was a whistleblower, but now as an attorney, I really take umbrage at that because my relationships with my clients are privileged, and journalists who are being stopped at the borders, their relationships with their sources are privileged, and this kind of behavior coming in the Western Hemisphere from so-called democracies is a complete threat to a free and open press as well as a legitimate justice system.
Absolutely. A very difficult experience to go through indeed. Jesselyn Radack, we appreciate you coming on, National Security and Human Rights Director at the Government Accountability Project. Thank you.